Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's Chad here. It's been a little bit since I have made a video, but I sincerely thank you all who has subscribed recently. My channel is really growing quite substantially, and I'm really proud of all of you for reaching out to me and keeping up to date with my journey as a network engineer. Now, this video is going to be a top 5 things that I deal with as a network engineer / working in IT. I'm sure each of you can relate to some of these if you work in the industry. A lot of the things that affects one engineer usually affects a lot of us across the board, and especially in some of the areas that I'm going to touch on. Now, some of these are even things that I can improve on and make sure that we do better at the company and organization I work at. So thankfully, I'm in the position to make those changes to help out where I can. Now, starting in at number 5, this one's going to be a big one because I think there's a lot of engineers out there that's going to be able to relate with that, and that is configuration drifts. So configuration drift is essentially where you will go on a network device, you'll make a change, and once you make that change, you intend, and I say the key word intend, to apply that across the board. Now, if you're on the automation train, you're going to be laughing at this because configuration drift is one thing that can be solved with network automation, and that is my intent at the organization I'm employed by, is to use network automation to fix this problem. But a good example of that is VLANs. So let's say, for instance, you need to put a VLAN on one switch, and then you start having some intermittent connection issues between different, let's say if you're at a campus location, you may have a building that's not getting the appropriate VLAN tags, and then guess what? You're not going to be able to route traffic in the way, or switch traffic in the way that you intended. So configuration drift is one thing that I struggle with, especially as a single engineer for this company. I pretty much touch all the switches, and if I have to apply a configuration change across the board without network automation, I'm doing it manually one by one. And as you are aware, if you've messed with this, it is really easy to forget to apply it to one switch or a router and do it everywhere else, and then you have problems and you have to figure that out. So configuration drift is definitely something that I struggle with. The next thing is ISP issues. Now, this is coming at number 4. I probably could put this at number 1. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this one especially. Oh man, you can't be up 100% of the time unless you have redundancy. And at the organization I'm employed by, we're a medium-sized small business, so I try and be as redundant as possible with our network infrastructure, but it is simply impossible, I would say, at least for us, to be up 100% of the time. Now, I'll plan on making a video probably in the future about ISP issues, because it really is a video by itself. But one thing to note here, we are switching up our infrastructure really soon to use an EP LAN situation. So basically, a stretched layer 2 network for our WAN that's going to reach out to our data center. I'm going to make a video probably on that as well, but ISP issues is something that I'm sure we all struggle with, and especially pointing fingers, because a lot of times you will have an issue that you do your due diligence and you research your network, make sure you don't have any problems, and your ISP, you contact them, they have their SLA to get back to you, but most of the time it takes forever for the ISP to respond and figure out what's going on. And a lot of times by then the issue is already resolved, and getting them to help you figure out something most of the time is a nightmare. Coming in at number 3 is going to be VPN connections. So as I just touched on at number 4, our current network is routed between branches through VPN tunnels. And initially we were using IPsec tunnels. We've switched edge firewalls probably more times than most companies, but we do switch our edge firewalls routinely, usually with the same vendor. But over the past few years, we've drifted from vendor to vendor, just trying to figure out what we like the best. And so far, we've stuck with Fortinet. But let me say this, if you are a Fortinet subscriber and you are using FortiGates, I don't know if it's just us, but we have had no luck at all with something that they call OCVPN. And essentially what OCVPN is, it stands for Overlay Control Virtual Private Network. And it builds out those tunnels. And what you do is you add, you connect it up to FortiCloud. And once you do that, you can go in and you drop in the members and you select what kind of network topology you're looking for. So what it will do is it will build a hub and spoke, or, you know, 2 hubs and multiple spokes, or whatever type of topology you're looking for. It'll build that for you, and all you have to do is specify the members of this overlay and then the subnets that you want to traverse. And then what it does is it sets up an IBGP connection between your sites and routes that traffic through IBGP. And it works pretty good when it works, but when it doesn't, it is awful. And I can say from experience, 99% of my connection issues comes from this OCVPN. Now, thankfully, this is going to be resolved once we switch over to a new routed infrastructure pretty soon, and we're going to be using OSPF. And with the EP-LAN situation, it's going to be like we're hooked straight up between sites. So that will be resolved pretty soon as well. But again, VPN connections is something that is especially finicky if you have circuit issues or anything like that. But also if you're routing voice traffic, you can have a lot of nightmares there as well. So coming in number 3, VPN connections. Number 2, something that doesn't happen as often. We're a company in the southern parts of the United States. So we don't have to face like snowstorms or anything like that. But coming in number 2 is storm/power outages. Now, I included these two together because really they come hand in hand, right? You have a really bad storm that's coming, knocks out the power, and if you don't have redundant power backups or UPSs, APC, whatever, you're pretty much done for. So fortunately for us, we do have quite a substantial amount of UPS backups, but they don't always work. They're not always as reliable, right? So sometimes they will kick on fast enough, sometimes they won't. Now, the ones we have in particular are older UPSs, so that's probably the fault for us. But again, you're not always guaranteed that they're going to work reliably. And especially if you're not keeping watch on how much usage you have on those, you could be overloading them. So in some cases, you may think that you've got enough power to power a firewall or whatever, but when you start adding on servers and things like that, you can quickly overload these backups, and they may work, but they may only work for a very short period of time. Now, storms and power outages is something that no one likes dealing with because there is a great potential in your devices getting harmed by this. And I know that's definitely happened to us in the past, probably, but with the UPSs, most of them do have protection built in, but power outages still affect us in a sense because the way our network infrastructure is now, everything connects back to HQ, and if HQ loses power and those UPSs die, guess what? That's multiple branches that lose connection and can't access things. So some stuff's not in the cloud or in the data center. Currently everything's routed back. We lose power, that's it. So that is definitely something that we struggle with as a company, but we are addressing that really soon. But that is coming in at number 2, power outages and storms. And coming in at number 1, this one's going to be pretty obvious, and that is end users. Man, end users is something that we all definitely struggle with, right? So you have your typical offenders, as I would like to call them, which is the typical users who come to you struggling with something, and you show them, and then they'll come back a few weeks later, or a few days, or a few minutes even. But they are what we're here for, right? So end users are whoever you're servicing. So if you are a network administrator or a server admin or whatever you are in the IT world, the end users is really who we work for in a sense, because they need to be happy, right? They need to be able to access certain critical things to do their job, and it's only fair that we expect them to have problems. We expect them that it's not always going to work 100% of the time, and they're going to need help. But they are occasions where end users do mess things up, right? So let's say you put in certain network policies for port security, and you find out that an end user moved their phone around or moved their computer around without getting with IT first. These things are something that can cause a lot of problems if they do it incorrectly. Let's say, for instance, end users moving from one computer to the other, and they accidentally plug up into the you know, the Ethernet jack going into the wall. Let's say they plug it up and, you know, connect both ends and cause a spanning tree error. I mean, really anything can happen with end users. And a lot of times, at least in my eyes, most end users will come to you for pretty much anything, right? They expect IT to be one of those all-in-one jack-of-all-trades industries where if they're having a problem with their computer or their desk or their chair, end users like to come to us a lot of times for decisions and helping them out. And it might not necessarily be our job, but, you know, I'm sure some of you have had some wild tickets come in, and, you know, sometimes everything's really nice and smooth, and then some days everything just seems chaotic. So really, end users is one of those things where, you know, it happens to everyone, right? I know as soon as I said that at the beginning, what this was going to be, number one, a lot of you probably chuckled because it really is true. So end users would be my number one struggle, just because there seems to always be an issue with understanding about technology or how to do certain things on a computer, or, you know, moving desks or moving phones around, and that ends up causing problems. So end users for me is my number one struggle. And well, guys, if you're listening to this, you've made it to the end of the video. I greatly appreciate each and one of you stopping in, watching the video. Leave a comment down below some of the issues that you deal with on a day-to-day basis at your company. I'd be excited to see your comments and see how I can relate to some of yours as well. Again, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.